My friend, there are moments in life when the ordinary rhythm of our days is suddenly interrupted by something divine, something so unexpected, so overwhelming, so beautifully orchestrated that you know without a doubt, this is God. And I believe with all my heart that many listening right now are standing on the threshold of such a moment. God is about to shock you with favor. Stay with me all the way through this message, because what I'm about to share may be the very confirmation your spirit has been waiting for. You are not here by accident. You're here because heaven is preparing to interrupt your life with its goodness. You see, God never begins where we expect Him to begin. He works behind the curtain, arranging the right people, the right timing, the right opportunities, long before His favor ever appears on the stage of our lives. Some of you feel forgotten, but what you call silence is God's strategy. While you're waiting, He's working. While you're praying, He's preparing. While you're standing still, He's setting the table for a blessing that will not only meet your need, but exceed it. When God moves, He moves suddenly. Every major miracle in Scripture came wrapped in divine surprise. Israel trapped at the Red Sea, then suddenly the waters parted, Daniel thrown into the lion's den, then suddenly God shut the mouths of lions. The disciples caught in a violent storm, then suddenly Jesus spoke peace into chaos. God specializes in the unexpected. Some of you are going to wake up one morning and realize the season you cried in has become the season you testify in. The door that has been shut for years will swing open with a force you cannot explain. The opportunity you thought you missed will return bigger than you imagined. The favor that felt distant will strike like lightning, but here's the part we often forget. Divine favor finds those who stay faithful, not those who are perfect, those who remain steadfast, those who keep praying even when nothing changes, those who keep walking even when the path grows dark, those who keep believing even when doubt tries to suffocate their hope. Faithfulness is the magnet of favor. It positions you, shapes you, humbles you, and prepares you for the weight of what God is about to release. I know some of you are under pressure right now. The enemy whispers, if God was going to bless you, He would have done it by now. But pressure is not a sign of abandonment. It is the sign of preparation. Diamonds form under pressure. Oil flows when the olive is crushed, and spiritual promotion often comes after spiritual resistance. The struggle you're facing is not the end of your story. It's the indicator that a new chapter is about to begin. The enemy attacks hardest when he knows God is about to release something greater. The delay you're enduring is not denial. It's divine timing sharpening your character so that when favor arrives, you will carry it with grace. And when God shocks you with favor, it will not just bless you, it will testify through you. Others will see what God has done and realize that no human hand could have produced such a turnaround. Your blessing will become someone else's hope. Your breakthrough will become someone else's reminder that God is still in the business of doing the impossible. So lift your head, strengthen your faith, prepare your heart, because the God who opens red seas, who shuts the mouths of lions, who speaks peace into storms, that same God is about to step into your situation. And when He does, His favor won't just bless you, it will shock you. You know, whenever we talk about the favor of God, most people imagine something instant, something visible, something obvious. But the truth is, the greatest works of God are almost always born in places we cannot see. And if I could sit across from you for just a moment and speak to your heart, I would tell you this with absolute conviction. God has been setting things up for you long before you ever prayed your first prayer about it. You think you're waiting on Him, but in reality, He's preparing something far greater than what you asked for. Let me draw you into this, because this is the part many people overlook. We often judge God's timing by what we can touch, what we can measure, what we can understand. But the supernatural rarely announces itself early. God hides His greatest work in the shadows before He brings it into the light. Think about it. Every miracle in Scripture began with God orchestrating events quietly, subtly, carefully. Before Joseph ever reached the palace, God was aligning people, dreams, opportunities, and betrayals into a divine sequence. Before David ever held a crown, God was arranging moments of training with lions, bears, and giants. Before Esther ever stood before a king, God was positioning her in a palace she didn't even ask to enter. And that same pattern is unfolding in your life right now, even if every part of your circumstance tries to convince you otherwise. You may be in a season where nothing seems to be moving. You're praying but not seeing results. You're believing but facing delays. You're standing in faith but feeling like heaven is silent. Yet the silence of God is not the absence of God. It is often the soundtrack of preparation. When God goes quiet, it is because He is working deeply. When you can't trace His hand, it's because He's arranging the path in front of you with precision. Some of you are wondering, why is it taking so long? Because God isn't just preparing the blessing, He's preparing you. He's working on your endurance, on your patience, on your spiritual maturity. He's removing people who would sabotage your future. He's shutting doors that would distract you. He's opening rooms you don't even know exist yet. And all of it is happening out of you, beyond your senses, beyond your understanding. Let me tell you something powerful. Delay is not defeat. Hiddenness is not failure. Waiting is not wasting. God does His best work in obscurity. Seeds grow in the soil long before they break through the surface. Babies develop in the womb long before they take their first breath. And breakthroughs form in the invisible realm long before they manifest in your hands. You may feel unnoticed right now, but heaven is paying very close attention. You may feel like your prayers have hit a wall, but they've actually gone into God's workshop. You may feel unprepared, but God is shaping you for a level of favor that requires strength, humility, and wisdom. He doesn't give what you cannot carry, and when the moment finally arrives, you'll look back and realize that the setup was more miraculous than the blessing itself. So don't rush the process. Don't misinterpret silence. Don't despise the days that feel empty. Every quiet season is a construction site for God's favor. Everything you think is working against you is secretly working for you. And when the time is right, God will bring out what He's been building behind the scenes, and it will be so perfectly timed, so beautifully aligned, so undeniably orchestrated that you will say, only God could have done this. You know, if there is one truth that echoes through every chapter of Scripture, it is this: when God moves, He moves suddenly, not gradually, not predictably, not politely, suddenly. And that word, suddenly, is one of the most thrilling, hope-igniting words in the entire Bible, because it reminds us that God doesn't need a long runway to lift your life off the ground. He doesn't need permission. He doesn't need agreement. He doesn't need a committee. When God decides to shift something, He does it in a moment so swift, so powerful, so unexpected that it leaves you breathless. Let me draw you into this truth, because this is where many people lose heart. We often assume that change must come slowly, that healing must be progressive, that restoration must take years, that breakthroughs must follow human timelines. But God's greatest works rarely unfold in slow motion. One command from heaven can end a season that has lasted for decades. One whisper from God can break chains that generations couldn't break. One moment of divine intervention can rewrite an entire story. Think about it. The Red Sea didn't part gradually. Moses didn't stand there watching a tiny stream widen inch by inch. No, the Scripture says the waters parted suddenly, creating a highway where there had been none. The prison doors didn't creak open for Paul and Silas. They flew open after a sudden heaven-sent earthquake. The storm on the Sea of Galilee didn't fade away over hours. Jesus spoke, and suddenly there was a great calm. That word suddenly is not just history, it is prophecy for someone listening right now. You may feel like nothing is shifting. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've stood in faith, and still the mountain seems immovable. But mountains don't move because of time, they move because of God. And God does not need time. He works outside of it, above it, beyond it. At the appointed moment, what felt stuck will break loose. What felt impossible will bend. What felt closed will open, not gradually, but suddenly. Some of you are living in the space between expectation and manifestation. And let me tell you, that is sacred ground, because that space is where God prepares the miracle that arrives in a moment. It is where your faith is tested so that your testimony can be trusted. It is where heaven gets ready to reveal what hell tried so hard to prevent. And when God finally acts, nothing can stop his hand. The doctor may say it will take months to recover, but God can restore in a single breath. The job you thought would take years to secure can come knocking on your door overnight. The relationship you believed was beyond repair can be healed in one heartfelt conversation, stirred by the Spirit of God. The financial situation that has weighed you down can turn around with one opportunity you never saw coming. That's the power of a sudden move of God. But here's the part I need you to hold on to. Sudden does not mean random. What looks sudden to you has been prepared by God for a long time. What feels unexpected on earth was scheduled in heaven. What shocks you was planned by the one who saw the end before the beginning ever arrived. So don't lose heart when nothing seems to be happening. Don't assume God is slow because you are tired. The absence of visible progress is not the absence of divine activity. God may not show you everything he's doing, but when he decides to reveal it, it will come so fast, so powerfully, so suddenly that your life will shift in an instant. And the moment it happens, you will know heaven has moved. Whoa, and the moment it happens, you will know heaven has moved. But hear me now, because this is where the flow of that truth carries us into something even deeper. Favor comes to those who stay faithful. Not flawless, not perfect, not superhuman, just faithful. You see, sudden moves of God are never disconnected from seasons of steadfast devotion. The suddenly moments we long for are built on the quiet, unseen choices we make every single day. Choices to trust when we could complain, to pray when we could panic, to stand when we could run. Faithfulness is the bridge between the silence of preparation and the shock of divine favor. Let me speak directly to your heart. Some of you have been faithful in a dry place. You've been steady while life felt unstable. You've kept believing when nothing around you encouraged your belief. And maybe you've wondered if heaven even noticed. But the God who sees in secret never ignores a faithful heart. Every tear, every prayer, every sacrifice, every act of obedience, he gathers them all, and he uses them to position you for what he is about to release. Think about the people God favored throughout Scripture. None of them were perfect, but all of them were faithful. Joseph remained faithful in a prison that seemed to have no exit. Daniel remained faithful in a foreign land filled with hostile voices. Ruth remained faithful in loss, grief, and poverty. Their circumstances didn't look promising, but their commitment remained strong, and that faithfulness became the soil where God planted extraordinary favor. Faithfulness keeps your heart aligned with God's timing. It keeps you steady when delay tries to discourage you. It keeps you ready when the enemy tries to distract you. And it keeps you watchful so that when the sudden move of God arrives, you don't miss it. Let me tell you something many people overlook. Favor isn't attracted to talent. It's attracted to trust. It isn't drawn to perfection. It's drawn to perseverance. God does not release extraordinary favor into a heart that is easily shaken. He releases it into a heart that has learned to stand firm in the unseen, to remain anchored when life storms, to believe even when evidence is missing. And I know sometimes being faithful feels costly. It costs you energy, it costs you comfort, it costs you opportunities that others seem to enjoy. But the cost of faithfulness is nothing compared to the reward of God's favor. Because when God decides it is your time, faithfulness becomes the magnet that pulls his blessing into your life with unstoppable force. You may feel overlooked right now. You may feel like others are being promoted while you wait, like doors are opening for everyone except you. But what if I told you that faithfulness in obscurity is often the final test before God unveils the next chapter? You might be standing in what feels like the same place, but God is watching how you handle the waiting. He's watching how you handle the pressure. He's watching how you handle the silence. And every moment you choose faith over fear, trust over doubt, obedience over shortcuts, you are preparing the ground for a harvest of favor you cannot measure. So remain steady, keep showing up, keep seeking Him, keep praying, keep believing, because the God who moves suddenly often does so in the lives of those who have proven faithful when there was every reason to quit. Because the God who moves suddenly often does so in the lives of those who have proven faithful when there was every reason to quit. And that leads us directly into what many of you are living through right now, often without understanding it. Your current struggle is the evidence of coming favor. I want you to hear this with clarity. Struggle is not always a sign that something is wrong. More often than not, it's a sign that something is about to break open. The enemy never fights what isn't a threat. He never pressures what has no potential. He never attacks what God has not anointed. The very intensity of the battle you're experiencing is heaven's whisper, you're getting close. You see, right before God releases favor, the spiritual climate often shifts, the warfare increases, the pressure intensifies, doors appear to close. Opportunities seem to vanish. Your emotions feel stretched. Your mind feels tested. Your faith feels shaken. Why? Because the enemy senses what you cannot see. He detects movement in the spiritual realm. He feels the tremor of a breakthrough forming beneath your feet. If you could see what heaven sees, you would understand that your struggle is not punishment. It is preparation. The weight you feel is not the weight of defeat. It is the weight of spiritual expansion. God is enlarging your capacity. He is stretching your endurance. He is sharpening your discernment. He is strengthening your spirit so that when the favor arrives, suddenly you will not collapse under its magnitude. Think about a woman in labor. The pain intensifies not because something is going wrong, but because something new is coming forth. And the closer she gets to delivery, the more intense the contractions become. That is exactly how spiritual seasons work. The deeper the struggle, the closer the miracle. Some of you have been asking, why is everything hitting me at once? Because you're not at the beginning of something, you're at the edge of something. You're not being buried, you're being positioned. You're not being crushed, you're being prepared. And the enemy is agitated because he can't stop what God has already set in motion. Let me tell you something powerful. Struggle is often the final signal that favor is on the way. Joseph's greatest hardship came right before his greatest elevation. David's fiercest opposition came right before he stepped into kingship. Israel's most impossible moment, trapped between Pharaoh and the Red Sea, came right before supernatural deliverance. Pressure always precedes promotion. And here's what makes your struggle meaningful: God never allows pain without purpose. The battle you're fighting is shaping a testimony that no one will be able to silence. The tears you've shed are watering the soil of a harvest that will astonish you. The moments you almost gave up are the very moments God will soon point to and say, "This is why I blessed you, because you refused to quit." So don't misinterpret the struggle. Don't assume the hardship means you're losing. Don't let fatigue lie to you. Struggle is not the absence of God's favor. It is the announcement of it. The pressure you feel is the push that leads into the suddenly moment God has already ordained. Hold steady. The struggle is not the end. It is the signal that favor is closer than it has ever been. Hold steady. The struggle is not the end. It is the signal that favor is closer than it has ever been. And that brings us into the final truth flowing naturally out of everything we've walked through together. When God releases that favor, it won't just bless you, it will testify through you. You see, God never gives favor merely to decorate your life. He gives it to demonstrate His greatness. He blesses you in such a dramatic, undeniable, breathtaking way that people around you cannot help but say, There is no explanation for this except God. The shock of favor becomes the spotlight that reveals His power. And this is why your blessing will be bigger than you expected, because it was never meant just for you. It was meant to be a living sermon, a walking story of what God can do with a heart that stays faithful, stays steady, and stays surrendered through seasons of struggle. Think about this deeply when God finally brings you out. It won't look like you barely escaped. It won't look like you survived by the skin of your teeth. It won't look like you crawled out of the fire. No, His favor will reveal that you came out refined, elevated, strengthened, restored, and carrying something you didn't have before. That transformation preaches a message louder than words. And here's the remarkable part. The very people who doubted you, ignored you, dismissed you, or overlooked you will have front row seats to what God is about to reveal. Not to embarrass them, but to show them what He can do. Because when favor comes, it shifts the atmosphere around you. It changes conversations. It rewrites reputations. It silences critics. It awakens faith in those who had none. Your breakthrough becomes someone else's courage. Your restoration becomes someone else's hope. Your sudden miracle becomes someone else's reminder that God still steps into impossible situations. Favor is never meant to end with you. It is meant to flow through you. And some of you need to hear this clearly. God is about to use your life as a testimony. Not the filtered version you show the world, but the real story, the tears you cried, the nights you endured, the storms you survived, the battles you fought. He is about to redeem every chapter you thought had no purpose. He is about to turn every private struggle into a public display of His glory. This is why the blessing will be so noticeable. This is why the turnaround will be so dramatic. This is why the elevation will be so unexpected. Because when the testimony is from God, it cannot be quiet. It cannot be hidden. It cannot be minimized. He blesses in ways that announce His involvement. And do you know what is most astonishing? When the favor arrives, it will come so suddenly, so strongly, so unmistakably, that you will feel the weight of heaven behind it. People will ask you, how did this happen? And you will be able to say with absolute truth, it wasn't me, it was God. That is the purpose of favor, not simply to enrich your life, but to reveal His goodness, His sovereignty, and His unmatched ability to take an ordinary life and turn it into an extraordinary testimony. So as you stand on the edge of what God is about to do, remember this. Everything you've walked through, everything you've endured, everything that felt heavy, painful, or confusing, it is all being woven into a story that will declare His power in a way words alone never could. Favor is coming, and when it arrives, it will testify louder than anything you could ever say.